Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel, everyone. I'm your host, the Innkeeper, and you are here for our live call-in talk show all about the Wheel of Time. Now, if this is the first time you've been with us, tonight is our live adaptation episode where me and the panelists and you in chat get to break down a book, and it just happens to be The Great Hunt tonight. We're in part 3, and like some of you in chat have said already, we're getting to some of my favorite scenes. And let's be honest, maybe it's just we're getting to Lanfear. That's what really matters. But before I introduce my panelists tonight, and before we jump into The Great Hunt and start breaking it down, how we would adapt this live in a keep, cut, kill, accentuate, add, whatever format, I want to cover some of the quick news that we had this last week. Starting off with what I like to call our staycationing Wheel of Time fan, who happened to see that Wheel of Time on Prime was putting together a structure on set and took some pictures. We're not going to show it here. We've shown it in a video. If you want to go find a previous video we did on this, they actually took a picture in front of it. It looked like a Wheel of Time holiday picture. I was a little bit jealous. But this turned into what I think one of the Instagram, maybe it was WoT series put out. It was the Portal Gate Stoneway controversy here. Whether or not it's the Portal Stone Gateway, Waygate, or if it's something else. So we had a lot of fun with that this week, just kind of throwing it out in speculation. And then we actually had a little video clip that ended up on the internet shortly. And then there were some stills of it, and now it's gone. It was from behind the scenes, not kosher kind of stuff put on the internet about the show. But if for those of you that are worried about spoilers, you don't have to worry about it, because all that little clip showed us was Rafe and his team are not destroying the books. You'll be surprised, but it's going to include white cloaks and maybe a wolf. I don't know if you read the books yet, but that's going to happen. So beyond those two stories, we did get today to kind of cap off WoT Wednesday, which I love. Some of the cast members throwing up some little live clips on Instagram of their trip out to go see. Priyanka Bose, for example, that to go do filming, showed us, it was really cold out there, and kind of gave us some shots in the morning. And then we also had Daniel Henney. I think Peter Franz and Daniel Henney's kind of making a point that he's going out and filming. It's really fun when they post these things and that we get to follow them. We'll cover all the news from this month later on, but I just want to kind of cover a couple of those things that kicked us off this week. And hopefully those of you that are following this online, you enjoyed those just as much as I did. But you're not here for that. We're here to break down The Great Hunt. Let's adapt it live, and let me bring in my panelists now for the evening. Hey, welcome Natalia, and welcome Rebecca from Reading the Pattern. Welcome both of you tonight.
Hi.
Hi, great to be back again.
For those of you that don't know, Rebecca has her own YouTube channel. In fact, the way you're seeing her here on screen is how you can see her on her YouTube channel, breaking down the books, breaking down characters. She loves to kind of go deep on analysis there. And I think even Rebecca, you put down you're a book nerd, and I would agree with that.
Yes.
And that's what I love about you. It speaks to
I'm
my
not running
hardcore,
away from it.
It speaks to my hardcore fan freak nature. So glad to have you here tonight. And without further ado, and for those of you that are watching, what we do is we start at a scene and we just start talking about whether or not certain characters, certain scenes are impactful for a live adaptation. Would we keep this? Would we get rid of it? We kind of vote. We try to vote in the chat a little bit. I try to track some of your comments when you're making fun of how much I love Lanfear. And then we just keep on going through the books. And today's part 3. So if you haven't watched part 1 and 2, go watch those. But we're right at the end of chapter 9. And I thought we'd cover it just a little bit before we get into the adventure that Ingtar takes us on with the boys, and then to obviously the Aes Sedai and Egwene and such. So right at the end of chapter 9, we get Bael Doman. We get this little POV moment, and he turns into this, at least in my opinion, this little star of the show a little bit. I mean, we all loved him in the Eye of the World, but we get this little piece where he ends up trying, they try to barter to get him to take this, this message over. They're paying him a lot of money to ferry this message, and he finds out. He's like, this is crazy. My guys are dying, and I'm getting out of here. And he finds out that there's a commission on him, and then he decides to kind of leave, right? But it's just a fun little piece. Do you both, maybe start with you, Rebecca, here. Do you think this Bael Doman, are we gonna have him as a key character in our adaptation? Do you think he is important to the show?
I mean, I personally kind of hope so. I really enjoy Bael Doman for whatever reason. He feels kind of like a thread in the pattern that we do want to keep and check in on now and then. It doesn't necessarily have to be at this exact moment, I don't feel, but I would love to be checking in on him. The fact that he pops in and out so many times, if you just took him out, I feel like it would affect things and it would make it more complicated than it needs to be. Like, just keep him.
Yeah, there's not really I guess maybe not a compelling reason not to
Yeah.
include this, but does it do anything like Tal? Do you think that there's an important thing that's happening here for kind of the building out of the show itself, the plot?
Well, it expands us to yet another city. So I think this is the first time we see Ilian.
Yes.
And as such, I was really reminded that it felt like New Orleans
Oh,
in a big way, like with its canals and its sort of like watery history and festivities, because it describes what felt a bit like Mardi Gras. I mean, we see different festivities in Ibudar later, but it sounded fun, and kind of edgy and dangerous, much like, Lestat's New Orleans. So I like the exposure to Ilian. I like that it's giving us a city of canals, which just sort of broadens the world. Do I think we need to see Bael Doman? 2 words, Matt. P.S. At this point, no. I think we could probably build him out later or add it to fill in another part of an episode. But yeah, I definitely want to keep him. If only for the.
There's something to be said about that. There is. Do we need this in this moment? I think there's probably better time spent elsewhere. But I do. It is world building kind of moment, and it really comes down to, do we need this character? Hopefully we still have him, but do we need him to continue to kind of run these side plots? Everyone loves this about Jordan, just how much is going on, right? Just how many threads in the pattern, if you will, that he has, and this is one of them that it does pay off, right? I definitely love this character, but is it, will he make the cut for the show? For us, let's determine here whether or not Bael actually follows along with us. What do you say, panel? Rebecca, are you a keep or cut here?
I mean, I would keep him because, again, I think if you take him out, there's too many little things that he does throughout the whole series that you have to come up with other solutions for. The simplest thing is to keep him. He doesn't demand a lot of time spent on him. We just have to kind of be checking in on him now and then and including him.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of curious. What does everybody in chat think here? Is this a keep or cut kind of character at this point in the Great Hunt? And Tal, where are you at with Bael?
Well, my notes say out, but my heart says in.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that I have a strong feeling on him, honestly, other than I really enjoy his character, and so yeah, we'll keep him. Okay. Awesome. Well, he's kept in. You made it, Bael. Well done.
Solved it.
So let's move on. I mean, chapter 10 is where this really gets going, right? The name of the chapter is The Hunt Begins. This is the fun stuff, right? And and this is, I wanted to cover this. I think this is such a key piece that this is where the search for the horn and the dagger begin, and it really encapsulates like the entire plot of Rand and Matt and Perrin in this piece. And so I think they need to do this part well with Ingtar, Uno, Massima. You have to actually take some time to knock this out of the park, in my opinion. Like, this is really the kind of build up right before they leave is important, but this is what everyone's going to love. These new characters that we get, plus the relationship between Matt and Perrin that's kind of growing in this chapter. So what we have here is, Rand is being treated like a lord and he doesn't get it. We have Loial still with them, and I loved the quip that Loial makes, which he can run as fast or faster than a horse. I'm really hoping they give us that. Like, I want to see Loial like outpacing a horse and just watching like everyone's face, like not expecting him, and he's just laughing, and Matt says some comment, but this piece of them tracking Padan Fain and the group, as they turn and they change directions and everything like that, and then you have and then you have Fain's work that's going on, but we never see it on screen, right? At least at this point, we don't see anything. And that is to say, like, they run into people that have been killed. And it's like, okay, they were killed, great. I'm hoping for our adaptation and the one we see on TV that this is really where the show can turn even like darker and grittier, and I think it should, because Padan Fain should be scary, right? What he's turning into should be frightening for the audience. So I'm a keep this whole sequence. The chase scene that we had when they were being chased. I love that it's reversed and now they're chasing. I think there's some complexity to that I really enjoyed when I went back and read this. Is there anything that stood out for the two of you in this chapter 10 that you think is kind of vital to adapting the series for television? Maybe Tom.
Do you want to go first, Rebecca?
No, go ahead, Tom.
For me, it was all the exposition. So it's important stuff. The campfire talk is our first real explanation of who the Aiel are,
right,
and why the Borderlanders have a bit of a hate relationship.
Yeah.
But also, it talks of it loops us back to Tam. It loops us back to Rand's origins, and it provides the historical context that up to now we've heard references of the Aiel War. We didn't know what it was. And so I really liked that piece of campfire world building.
Yeah.
I also really, really loved, and I hope we can keep the speech that Ingtar gives regarding the failed kingdoms.
Oh yeah.
Between Kirian and the Borderlands, essentially. And his totally nihilistic, which I spelled wrong in my notes, his like completely nihilistic worldview. Yep. It really helps to give you the backbone of why he ended up making the decision he did. Yeah. I think.
I like those two callouts are really important. Massima, I think they can make him. I think they can really show that and give it some weight of why he has this dislike for Rand and really kind of build into that. And I love the idea that you called out about Ingtar. He has this little speech that he gave, and it absolutely speaks to his character, really builds him up, and it makes him really unique compared to everything we've seen so far in the series. So, Rebecca, is there anything that kind of stood out to you? Oh, sorry. Did you want to say something, Tal?
But just, are we keeping Massima?
Yeah. Why would we not?
Because what does he add to the story? He's like a big red herring.
To me, he's like he's sort of another form of like human evil. We have a number of those. Like, he's not the only one, so he's not totally crucial because we can get that in other ways. The sort of non-dark friend, non-shadow evil. He's one of those. That's what he does to me. But otherwise,
you're right.
Yeah, maybe we'll ask everybody in chat. I'm curious what you guys have think about. Would you keep Massima, or would you get rid of him at this point? I mean, this is an opportunity to kind of cut that whole, the whole plot line.
The whole plot line. I don't know that it adds a whole lot.
I'm kind of curious. Yeah. So, Rebecca, what stood out to you in chapter 10 here that you think is key to
some of those same things. I mean, that introduction to the Aiel and that history, and definitely Ingtar. There's a number of things. So there's Ingtar's choosing to give the blessing when he buries the two other Shannara dark friends. Yeah. And then, his sort of despair that comes out when he's talking about the failed nation. Those are really big hints to what's at the heart of Ingtar's character. So those are fascinating bits. I think the actual, the traveling, the tracking, a lot of those kinds of things, even in the text, it's sort of described as repetitive, and that can be sort of fast. We don't need to spend a lot of time on that. It's the character interactions around the campfire and things like that that are crucial, I believe.
Yeah, Old Man Havoc just pointed out that if we do cut him, he removes a large part of Perrin's story and later in the narrative. So I mean, it does affect. It's not like simple just pull the thread, right? Like Jordan always talked about, and I think he talks about that in many ways, which is you pull any component of a story, and often you don't know how far the thread kind of breaks down the narrative of that story, or affects it. You do have to cut those things, and you have to kind of piece something together later on. So that's something to keep in mind, at least as we think about getting rid of him. I'm not sure that I'm ready yet to get rid of him. Maybe by part 5 of The Great Hunt, I will be done. And but I don't think I'm there yet.
it is kind of nice to have somebody be totally antagonistic towards Rand.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, it could just be White Cloaks that Perrin fights later on down the road. I mean, Nye Bliss said the same thing when he was joining us for a chapter breakdown, but I don't like the dude, and he smells funny, and he's a red herring.
Let's put it this way: you can leave him in now, and Rafe can always kill him off later. That's all I'm saying. You know, you don't have to drop him right now. So
it's true. You don't have to lift him out from the very beginning if you want to cut him off later.
Yeah,
it's a tough call.
To your earlier point, Matt, I don't think we need most of the chase, except in maybe perhaps a series of quick cuts of like fast horse feet.
Well, you're killing me now. This, like, get rid of it. I think this chase scene though is important. You know, there's, in other words, I think that there's it forms Ingtar's character and Uno's character and Massima's character and how Matt and Rand and Perrin interact with them. If we kind of segue through it too quickly, I think you lose some of the kind of formative. You know, you lose a little bit of this. Why does Ingtar care so much? You just don't gain a love or, you know, a respect for those characters. I think if we go too fast is all I'm saying.
Fair. I definitely want to keep the fairy, and I definitely want to keep the tree with the skinned bodies.
Okay, you're jumping way ahead there, Ta.
Am I?
Yeah, that's not in chapter 10.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Listen, it is because I have my notes down by chapter.
Oh, yes, you're right. You're right at the end. You're right. That's true. Yeah, I think you have to keep that piece. And I mean, you skipped the most important part of that, which was the woman in white. I mean, you jumped to like these flayed guys that no one ever cares about or shows up again. And then we have the introduction of it is dark. No, it is. No, you're right. You're right. That piece, this whole section is dark, and I do hope that they take it there. You know, and I'm kind of curious, you know, from everybody in chat, you know, do you want to see Padan Fain, Mordath? Do you want to see how they're when they do this, like they flay them and the Trollocs taking the people, or do you like
go watch Saw?
I don't mean see in detail, but I know what's going on versus just find it. I'm kind of curious, you know, go watch Saw.
I think finding it is in some ways more. It could be more compelling, right? If you don't know what's happening, your imagination's allowed to fill in the blanks. I think it's better that way. I mean, we'll see him at some point, but we don't need to be seeing every heinous thing he does the entire time.
That's true, but I think we have to fear him. I think we don't fear him in the first show, and I think we have to see that there's been a transition made, and there has to be a reason other than random people are dying and we don't know who's responsible for it. At some point, even if we just are brought in later on, you know, you're brought into Padan Fain and he's there and he's like, ha ha ha, I'm going to get you, my pretty, kind of thing with Rand. But we don't see him do any of these deeds necessarily right up front.
But you do in chapter 11. So just hold on, Matt.
Well, yeah. So, but to this point of the Lanfear scene where we see the woman in white, if you will.
Is that what we're calling it? The Lanfear scene?
Yeah.
Is that a bad scene? This flies moment, Rebecca, it stands out to me. Again, everyone watching, if you've watched this show before, you know how much I love the introduction of this character. But how important do you think this kind of stop and the flies and the blink, and how important is that to this? Or is it just kind of a cut scene, we don't need it?
It's evocative, but it's confusing. And so I'm in favor of cutting it just because I don't think it's going to make any sense. And it's never really explained in the books. So it's a compelling moment, but it sort of stands apart and we don't really understand how it fits in with everything.
Okay.
I agree completely.
You know, you guys are terrible people, and so Matt,
explain the blinks.
I'll
explain the blinks.
I'll make my case for this, which is, I think we do have to have Rand have these kind of metaphysical moments, right? He has to have these like supernatural, where he's like channeling, doesn't know what to do. He's caught. He has to be trapped in some way to force him down this pathway of channeling. And this is one of those, right? Like something's happening to him and no one knows why or how, right? It's not just, he can't just be on a horse and he's riding along with his friends Matt and Perrin as Ingtar and his soldiers, you know, cut down people off of trees. Like that's not a really compelling journey for Rand at this point. And this is part of Rand's journey, which is this interaction with Selene eventually comes up, and just to have her show up in the portal world, in the mirror world, doesn't really, I don't know, it lends itself to kind of convenience versus them building her into the story at least a little bit beforehand, I guess is my point.
get a glimpse of her, though, even if we didn't have that full-on scene where he gets stuck for a while there.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm a yes. You're right. We can.
You just think the blinks are cool, Matt. It's okay. You can think it.
No, so it does add this. It adds like he talks about, you can see the cold, as he's being frozen in place. It adds to what the experiences are from a channeling perspective without actually seeing somebody channel. I'm just saying there's a lot to it, but it sounds like both of you are for cutting the fly scene. I can't believe we just cut the fly scene out of our live adaptation and disgusted with both of you.
You cannot show a shot of a plate of not eaten food covered in flies to show that people were ripped out of their homes at dinner time.
Well,
I'm happy to see that shot. I just don't need the blinks and the flies and the weirdness.
Again, the weirdness is all kind of a part and parcel of the Great Hunt, and why it turns a little bit different than just your average fantasy epic. It starts adding some some elements that you just can't explain. So, but I'll stop belaboring that part. I think it's a really good scene. I hear both of you don't think we need it. It's nice to hear that, Rebecca, you're kind of in your favor, at least getting a glimpse of Lanfear through the window, maybe.
I think we're definitely going to get those little glimpses of her, because it happens a few times later on too. So they can do that at any point.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's true. Okay, sounds good.
One more scene.
Tell us the next scene that I'm missing. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You're right. Go ahead, Tal. Tell us the scene. Yeah.
Well, they walk to the center square of the last village before they cross, and what do they find but a skinned Murdral?
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is horrifying.
Yep.
Do you want to see that? See, at some point we're going to have to see some of this, right?
We got to see it.
Wicked cool image. Do I think it needs to be in that specific spot in this specific episode?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
think it maybe
does.
holds up the story and the chase.
But this again goes to the theme of how dangerous Padan Fain is.
And I
think
agree
you have
completely.
To show that.
Completely.
Like
it
Steven,
also
go ahead.
explains the change in pattern of they're tracking them and they're following this pattern, and then it changes, and it lining up with that, it helps explain it, right? Padan Fain takes control completely at that point. So I think it is important.
Yeah, and you have as one fan, I think it was Stephen Willis, pointed out that horror is going to bring in a different, fan base to this a bit. It will appeal. Some of these things might not appeal to us directly, but it might appeal to different fan bases and I think Jordan does that, right? He has all these elements that you might not expect in your, typical fantasy epic like this, but he brings it in, and I think that could bring in some other fans if they went down that road. And unraveling the pattern in chat was right. The Myrddraal isn't skinned; he's just he's spiked.
Sorry, my apologies.
Either way, it's a scary image.
Brutally mutilated.
Scary.
My bad.
Yes, he's brutally staked, but not skinned. Padan Fain left his clothes on.
Thank you.
Oh God!
You don't want to see a skinned Myrddraal. So it is. What I think is important about that, just to put a nail in it, if you will, is this idea that the Myrddraal was really scary to Rand and his crew, and now it's something that
is really scary.
You're right. Is still, and then it's something scarier out there, and
something worse.
They don't know.
It's the freaking out of what could do this to the Fade.
Yeah.
That's crucial.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
come back to that a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would like a quick reaction shot from Uno.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that'll sell the what possibly could have done this to a Myrddraal.
Yeah.
Better than anybody else, I think.
Yeah.
I like
Uno can react to anything. That's fine by me.
I like that Ted in chat said he's the Inquisitor of the Wheel of Time. I love that. If you're a Brandon Sanderson fan, you know what that means. So chapter 11, we have this section where they stop, and I noticed this part in the book this time reading it through that I hadn't noticed before, when he said that Ingtar had not stopped so early before in the day. And it keyed me in a little bit more, because obviously for those that are watching, and maybe we haven't have we not made a spoiler warning at this point? There's going to be some spoilers, obviously.
Spoilers,
I was about to spoil one. For those of you that are watching, if you've made it this far, I don't think we spoiled anything for you. There may be some spoilers, and there may be some significant ones coming that are going to, affect some major key things that happen in the book. So know that going forward. At least you've made it this far. So you have Ingtar. We know what his character arc is, and so it says Ingtar had not stopped so early before. There is clearly a reason why he stopped, and you could say it's because he's afraid, for his men, and he wants to go out and scout things out. But he happens to stop right in the spot that leads to Rand being taken into the mirror world here with his friends. I don't think that that's a coincidence. Is mostly the point that I wanted to bring out there. And I think.
Wait, are you saying he did it on purpose?
Absolutely, yeah. I think
that he was told, like, his instructions were to camp there.
Of course, yeah.
Okay. And I never looked at it that way.
The reason why
I thought it was just he was slowing down not to catch them.
Well, no, but think about it. Egwene, a little bit later here, we'll cover this, sees Rand and sees Ishamael in the dream, and then sees Lanfear leaning over Rand next to the portal stone. It's clear that this is kind of part of the plan, right? It was part of the plan to bring Rand where she did and do what she does. So the fact that Ingtar happens to, and that the narrative of the book says he had never stopped so early before, like, why tell us that if you're not? You can tie it again, like, oh, Ingtar's scared, but he's not scared of anything, right? These guys are not scared. The fact is they stopped in the spot on purpose, in my opinion. So.
It's a good thought. But do you think that Ishamael and Lanfear are coordinating, or are they doing their own things?
They're definitely coordinating and doing their own things.
I was gonna say,
yes, to both of those. Yeah, absolutely. Right. They're definitely coordinating in the sense that Ishamael is, probably telling Lanfear what to do in some cases.
But then she's still obviously
doing her own thing. Yeah, that's our good old Lanfear. There is a piece here that I think is important when Ingtar gives Rand the bundle, if you will. He goes off in the clearing. He opens it up. He sees the banner. And then his friends come over and see it, right? There's classic Matt, Perrin, Rand moments in this, which I love. I love this piece, and Matt, teases him. And then Rand finally tells them he can channel, and there's this kind of, this moment where Matt says something like, he pretty much says, like, am I the only one that's, like, sane anymore? Or you've changed. I think this part he says to Rand, you've changed. And it's really funny because he's nailing this out where it's like he's changed, Perrin's changed, Rand's changed, everyone's changed. And that's an important kind of acknowledgement. And I hope that they make that clear, in their kind of adaptation, which is this is a shift from book one, right? We're now into a completely different place for all these characters, and they're continuing to change. That's what stood out to me. Obviously in the chapters, Padan Fain, but and we can talk about that. But Rebecca, is there something here, what's important to you in chapter 11? Is there something, instrumental from an adaptation standpoint we make sure we get on TV?
So I do agree that the whole scene around the Dragon Banner, first between Ingtar and Rand, and then when Matt and Perrin come in and they have that whole confrontation. I mean, both of those scenes are really crucial. The thing that's sort of tricky about the Rand, Matt, and Perrin part, I think a lot of people don't like Matt because of this moment, like this sticks for people. And I think part of the issue is, like, we don't have Matt's point of views yet. We don't get how much he thinks things differently than what he says and so on. So I don't know, it could be just a tricky moment to portray those dynamics between the three of them and show the bonds there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got to get that right, I think.
Yeah, I think you have to get this piece right, and because it's also part of the breaking that's happening between them, right?
Yes.
The walls are kind of being built here. They're kind of moving forward with the things that are changing them, and it does start to break this little trio apart that we've come to like and enjoy.
And that's essential, and Rand has to be without them. Like that has to happen. So yeah, but it's a tricky one to do.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. Anything else that stood out to you, Tal, as far as this chapter? It's a pretty short one. Not a ton happens here, but is there something that's formative that you think would be important for Rafe and his team to adapt into the show?
A couple of things. So one for me is that the handoff of the bundle, but also the speech about the Shanarian chain of command, where he tells Rand that should he die, like should Ingtar die, that Rand is going to be in charge. That really shakes him. Mm-hmm. And is part of the reason he goes off in private, because he knows damn well what's in that bundle.
Yeah.
and he's trying to process all of it, right? So I think it's crucial that we see Moiraine pulling strings from afar, and that she's never going to give Rand the full picture of information. So I feel like that's really important. I definitely want to keep the moment between the boys.
Yeah.
Sure. And I love two key points. One is when Perrin like just bluntly tells Matt to shut up.
Yeah.
Just like stop talking. I need to think.
Yeah.
And then the other piece is that Matt doesn't say you changed. What he says is you are just not the same anymore.
Yeah. Sorry. That's great. Thank you for quoting that. Yeah, absolutely. You're not the same anymore. I think that is definitely key
it's
to
momentous.
This.
Yeah, it is.
And it's key, and it really speaks to the cultural feelings with respect to men who channel. Like, this is his ride or die best friend, who's now looking at him in a completely different way.
Yeah.
Because of something that is totally out of his scope of control. Like, high relevant to today much? I really like sort of the complexity of that scene, the complexity of the relationships. And to your point, Rebecca, yeah, like they got to do it right, because this is key.
Yeah.
Mind you, to your other point about sort of not having Matt's interior thoughts down the line, the sort of joy that I'm reading into Matt saying, I knew he wouldn't leave me.
Yeah.
Really colors, and I don't think I've ever picked up on it before, to be honest with you, until I started doing this really slow reread. So I like that, and I think there's ways to bolster Matt's likability down the line.
Yeah, and also he has a moment in this scene where he does really react to realizing that Rand is on this journey to help Matt to get the dagger back. Like that is a big moment for him, and that helps.
Yeah. Yeah. So this chapter ends with Padan Fain. So this is kind of the way Jordan does it, right? He kind of here's Padan Fain almost thinking back about his success that he's had so far. He's finally talking about, right, here's Matt talking about Rand not being the same and they're all changing, and here's Padan Fain talking about like he's finally himself, right? He's got all the pieces together and now he's Mordath, right? He's the merging has finally completed and he has his power that he wants, and he recognizes that how all these people are afraid of him, and he actually has a goal here which he kind of espouses again, which is he loves that Rand's chasing him, but he's like, the dance is not even begun yet, we'll dance on Toman Head. I love this about it because it does set him up as this villain, it sets up this relationship with Rand here and the boys, but Rand especially. And so it's this other thing that's now even more powerful than Fades. He doesn't have to just worry about like the Dark One. Like there's this other power that maybe is even stronger than the Dark One, which I love the setup that he does. Jordan maybe doesn't deliver on all that, and we can argue about that piece as far as for the rest of the books, but it certainly does add, I think, a lot of depth and drama to this moment and this character, and it makes you worry for Rand's safety for sure.
Do we know how Fain? Sorry, I get really high pitched when I'm questioning. Do we know how Fain knows that Toman Head is in their future?
That's a good question. I don't know that we know exactly how he is planning on, if this makes sense, that he's planning on going there, why he's planning on going there, like what was the moment that made him decide to go there. I don't think it's prophetic in any way. In other words, I don't think there's any kind of root there.
Who wrote the prophecy?
I think it was, I want to say it was a Fade. Maybe they'll ask everybody in the chat. I can't remember who I think Jordan answers that question. I just can't remember who he said, but it's not. Yeah, it's not.
It might be in the companion, but it was definitely noted that it was a nicer hand.
It wasn't. What I'm saying is, it wasn't Fain, but maybe Fain had him do it. I can't remember exactly.
It could have been Fain. It wasn't a Trolloc. That was what they were sure of. It wasn't a good. Handwriting was too good.
Yeah, I could have sworn it was not Padan Fain, but maybe I'm
Yeah.
like I don't have. I'll go search for it maybe as we get to a part where I can. But
that does reference Toman Head as well.
Right.
yeah,
But
it does. Yeah.
Wouldn't Ashamael know that the Seanchan are heading there?
He would.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
true.
And the but yeah, that's a good question, and maybe we can go back and kind of break that down. I like that question. Maybe after the show, for those that are watching, jump into Discord, and after the show, when we're done here, I actually have a break, and I'll jump in there and we can do like a little after show and answer some questions in chat that I might have missed, and then and we can cover this piece. Maybe I was wrong about the Fade and Fain thing. We'll see. I'll get that proof if no one else has it. This as far as Fain's piece here, I like that he points out you have all these dark friends. I love the multiple dark friend thing we have going on here. In other words, like he talks about it's like 20 to 30 dark friends, that were with him in Faldara, right? Like that's got to make people go like, just how many dark friends exist at this point, right? Like I love that Jordan's like, yeah, everywhere is a dark friend. You just don't know who is working for for the Dark One at this point. And I love that piece, and I hope that they keep it in, which is the enormity of what's going against Rand and crew at this point. So
it also speaks a bit to the culture of Dark Friends in that it doesn't matter if you're a lord or lady.
Right.
A beggar could be higher than you in the Dark Friend order.
That's true.
Because he doesn't they were high-ranking Dark Friends presumably in Faldara, and now they're meat.
Yeah, I do like that aspect of this, which Jordan sets in there, which pretty much Fain is like, I don't really care, what can you do for me? So Robert Jordan, by the way, I did just looked it up. Amir Dral wrote the Dark Prophecy on orders as a threat.
Okay.
So
all right.
On whose orders?
On orders. Jordan didn't specify, I don't think. So it could have been Fain's. But, so let's jump into the next chapter. Chapter 12 is woven in the pattern. We finally get to Egwene and Nynaeve here. Rebecca, I'm going to let you have this one instead of giving my summary. Like, what is from this chapter with Egwene and Nynaeve? What is the important piece here? What is formative to the plot? What needs to be in the live adaptation? To pretty much carry it through the rest of maybe either the first season or second season. I guess we don't know at this point.
Yeah, actually, the interesting thing that's jumped out to me about this chapter is there's a lot of things that are referenced that happen off screen. And at the very beginning of the chapter is like where we were back several chapters ago. So that's not going to happen. That'll happen simultaneously with the leaving. But there is this off-screen Nynaeve Lan scene that I hope we would see if it's important. It makes her mad. And I think the last scene we'd actually seen between the two of them was more touching. And then apparently he says something that makes her mad. So maybe we'll see that.
Yeah.
And then the first really big thing to me was Verin's lesson with Egwene and Nynaeve.
Yep.
And then we get the other Aes Sedai coming in as well. We have Alviarin, which I'd kind of forgotten that she was there, and Alana and Leandrin.
What did you like about the Verin? Like, what was important to you, at least, for Verin?
I love everything about Verin. So
Who doesn't?
It doesn't really matter what it is, anything to do with her.
True story.
So let's try to be careful unless we have to spoil anything Verin wise. Okay. Let's just try to be. I think we spoiled it in earlier adaptations, so it's not like a big deal. But if we have to, then we have to. So
it's contextual.
But yeah, so no, I think it's just it's interesting to see. First of all, this is kind of like we're getting introduced to different Aes Sedai, and they all have different priorities, different styles, different temperaments, approaches, goals that you can kind of pick up on. So that's kind of just interesting. I mean, however they do that, at some point we're going to get that. Maybe we get it earlier in the show, honestly, than this point. But
yeah, I think each one of those things you called out, there were a couple quotes I think were really formative. The Amerlin says, "Yes, I sense a fine spark in each of them, but what will kindle from it? That's the question, isn't it?" Again, kind of really awesome setup, and I think hopefully they capture that, whether or not it's in words. Hopefully they capture that idea that this is kind of a huge moment for Egwene and Nynaeve, and what's going to come from this moment is important. The Verin piece. Verin says, "Well, Moraine has never believed in telling anyone anything they did not need to know. Knowing serves no real purpose, but then neither does not knowing. Myself, I always prefer knowing to not." And the reason why I bring that up is then Verin insinuates that she knows about Rand. She
Right.
she insinuates on purpose. She gets really kind of serious when Verin gets
Mm-hmm.
serious, right? When she changes her demeanor, it's very calculated. She gets very serious for a moment and brings up, and talks about, or she had just talked about, this idea of men channeling, and then gets really serious, and almost it's like Verin's wink to Egwene, right?
Yeah.
And then Egwene's like, oh my gosh, does she know?
Yeah.
This is Verin telling her, right? Verin prefers the knowing versus the not knowing, and in this case, she gave to Egwene this piece, right? She does it in a Verin subtle way, but I love that about this scene. She's like, yeah, Moraine isn't going to tell you anything, but I will. I'll tell you things. You might not know how important they are, but I'll tell you stuff because I think it's more important than not knowing.
That sums up her character. Preferring to know than not to know. I mean, that is it.
That is the sum total of the context that anybody who knows what we're talking about needs to know.
Exactly. See, look at that. We didn't have to spoil that right then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. I think those are such key moments. There is the Leandrin part. She's again plays too much of this villain, like, watch yourselves, my daughters. You're in a village no longer. Now you dabble your toes where there are things to bite you. There's a little bit, she's always, I hope they don't play her that, I don't know.
I know.
Maybe that's part of her character, and then it's fine.
She's like mustache twirly.
She is. They need to nuance her a little bit, maybe, or for my preference. But
Yeah. Was there something here, Tal, that you thought that we didn't call out that was important, or there's something you wanted to kind of double down on?
A couple of things.
Okay.
I seem to be exposition girl today, so that's cool. I'll go with it. This is the first time we hear about the difference between wilders and learners.
Mhm.
This is the first time that we get cultural and hierarchical information about the White Tower itself, vis-a-vis, I'm using big words, the difference between novices and accepted. And also, I don't know how to say this without spoiling it.
I'm not sure.
Did a particular brown Aja know about a particular blue Aja?
I'm not sure. I feel like you can spoil it a little bit. If you're talking about, I'm not sure.
Shiriam specifically.
Shiriam.
Oh, you're saying it right here. You think that they need to make a case for that right here?
I don't think they need to make a case. I was just curious.
I love how, by the way, I love how Joshua Burkhardt is like, Tal's voice cracked. She's got a question.
True story.
Yeah. No, I think this is. I actually hope they don't do a lot of exposition here. I hope some of this just comes from, because this is like one of those chapters where like you could just, okay, and this is what a dreamer is, and this is what a novice is, and this is what I'm hoping they're able to kind of work that in. It's important to kind of start taking Egwene and Nynaeve into what they're about to hit, but
sure, but the way that Verin does it is beautiful because it's Nynaeve who keeps trying to take off, and she's like, "Oh, but."
Yes. Yeah. No. This is
the way she handles Nynaeve is hilarious. I love.
Yeah. So you get a funny character moment and development for Nynaeve, but you also get context and world building.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
So I like this piece of exposition. The piece about the dreamer between her and Anaya, I don't think it's necessary in this timeline.
Sure.
We can get it later.
And I would agree with that. I don't think we have to see that Egwene sees Rand in this moment. I think we can do some dreams maybe, but this would be a time to start building out Egwene as a dreamer. That's true, but I don't think we have to see then her going to talking to people about it. It could be
we don't have to name it. Also, did we notice that Verin essentially prophesized somebody's death?
I didn't notice that part. What are you talking about? So
she's explaining to Egwene what happens if you take in too much of the power.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's a good one.
So like again.
I love it. You were so circumspect there. I was like, what are you talking about?
You told me not to spoil. I am trying.
No, that was good. I don't think we need to, go too deep there. For anyone.
Percentage-wise, can we talk about how 3/4 of the folks visiting our girls are black hats?
That jumped out to me too.
The which one? Say that again. Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah.
That's Well, again, we don't know that in the story, and hopefully it's not.
No.
Hopefully it's really subtle. By the way, before we jump on any further, this is, for those of you that are new, a live call-in talk show. We've pushed that back often until the later part. We just got deep into talking about Moiraine and Verin. Yeah. If you want to give us a call, you can call us at 1-313-825-5968. That's 1-313-825-5968. If you have a comment about the Great Hunt, the chapters we've covered, is there something that you think definitely needs to be in there, shouldn't be in there when it comes to Rand and his crew and Egwene and Nynaeve as they go onto the White Tower. And while anyone decides to call in, let's jump into chapter 13, which is From Stone to Stone. We have in this one, this is obviously when we get the mirror world. Now, we didn't ask this question earlier. I'm assuming it didn't matter because all of you are in favor of keeping mirror worlds. You're not in favor of keeping mirror worlds?
Wow. No, I'm not.
Wow. This is terrible. I can't believe you'd say that, but that's okay. I'm then ask everybody in chat, mirror worlds, give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. I'm absolutely for keeping mirror worlds. I think they're interesting, they're compelling, they make the world, they add complexity to this concept of a threaded pattern and a wheel. When I think you have good old Loyal kind of tell us about the worlds of If and this idea of the multiverse, in essence, this string theory, all these type of things. When it comes to the physics, Jordan really made a point of that, and he liked to bring it into his books here. So this idea that he would add texture like that, I think you have to keep it to keep kind of Jordan's intent for the wheel. That's my pitch. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about this, Rebecca? Would you keep the mirror worlds in our live TV adaptation?
I would keep them. And I think the world building aspect is really cool. But also I think that what happens for Rand on this journey is pretty formative. And so if you want to accomplish that, he needs to be separated from the rest of the group, I think. So if you don't do it that way, you have to do it some other way. And then you get into potential complexities of trying to figure out some other way to remove him from the rest of the group, which I think needs to happen.
Yeah, I agree. If you don't, well, I mean, they would have to cut a bunch. I mean, they could, I guess. They could try to just do the chase all the way down to Carheen and I guess, and they could get there, and I guess you could skip some of this, but I like the idea of Verin showing up and all these things that we're going to get to. So I'm definitely for keeping it, and because again, it's really interesting, and it gets Rand away, and it kind of has, then you have Perrin kind of coming forward with his abilities, taking a more of a leadership role.
That's not till chapter 14. You're skipping ahead.
I'm just saying you have him coming forward. So I think it's important that they get out of there, is my point.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure. But why couldn't Lanfear just travel them to the Caroline grass?
he's just like gating them and dragging them through, and then
just put them in the middle of nowhere and make him find his way out.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that. That's not beyond the possibilities. You certainly can do that. I'm for keeping this, but there's not much that really happens. They just find out they're in the mirror world, in essence, and they start looking. And before we jump on to chapter 14, because that one 13 is kind of just like, yep, there's this other world. It's kind of weird. Let's move on.
Rand tries to channel.
Yeah, he tries to channel, which I think is funny. I think they ought to show everyone's reaction to him as he's just standing at the stone and nothing's happening. It's so awesome. we have a couple callers. Let me bring Andrew into the show. Hey, Andrew, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing?
Pretty good, yourself. The question I wanted to ask, and I figured I'd talk about Lanfear, so definitely would get on that way, is how do you think they're going to cast the different roles that Lanfear has? Are they going to use different actresses for Selene and Lanfear's true self? I mean, I guess they'd probably have to use a different actress for her in book 5, and that's where I'll leave it at that, so we don't get into spoilers. But for her other, but Selene could really look the same as Lanfear does normally. I mean, because Rand doesn't really see her until she says, "Hey, I'm Lanfear," in another book.
Hey, I'm Lanfear. Yes.
So how do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah, good question. Did you have an answer there, Tal?
Andrew, have you seen the Vampire Diaries?
No, I have not.
One of the main female characters ends up playing 5 different people who just look remarkably the same. It's kind of ridiculous, but I feel like you get the right actress, she can do Celine and she can do Lanfear. As to our third iteration, we'll get there.
No, I think she could do that too.
Yeah, but,
I mean, if you're willing to do some, makeup, prosthetics, etc., she could do all of it.
Yep, I would agree with that. I think they can
Okay.
just. I think that's how I would suggest that way. Same way too. In the answer to that. Yep.
Okay, so the subtle differences, so that the viewer kind of who doesn't know the story, that hasn't read the whole story, can say, "Oh, those." Think initially those might be two different people.
Yeah, well, we haven't seen Lanfear before, have we?
Except in a window.
Yeah, but at some point.
Yeah.
Well, that could be just anyone, and that could be just some stagehand wearing white. But sort of once we do, there are a couple of scenes eventually where you get to actually see Lanfear in a true look.
Yeah.
So
later
I guess you're right. I guess if you kind of do some like de-aging or aging or
it's
kind
cleavage,
of
Andrew.
stuff,
it falls down to costuming.
aging or I like how you just consolidated it down. It's cleavage. That's the.
I mean, the character description is that she becomes a lusher version of herself.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the word lush, like
true, but I think it was more. See, I think that's the way it was with Elaine and with her mother, Morgase. When more of a ripeness, it becomes, when one of the characters, I think it might be Rand, when he first sees, Morgase, he says, "This is what Elaine would look like, an older, more mature, ripe." I think Lanfear was supposed to be.
I really hate comparing women to tomatoes.
Yeah, it's not a good
Personally,
word.
All right. Robert Jordan did it.
Robert Jordan did it.
I know, but...
I like that. I like that. Good answer, Andrew. Hey, Andrew. By the way, thank you.
It's better than. It would be better than what. Who's the red that Androl, who compares him to trees.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Hey, man.
Also not ideal.
Also not. Hey, Andrew, thank you very much for calling and asking that question. That's a good one. And as always, thanks for coming to the Dust Wheel, man.
Have a good night.
Hey, you too.
Bye.
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 Yeah, I think this question of Lanfear that we're meeting right now, or shortly.
Rebecca, do you need a different actress?
No. I want it to be one actress. Yeah.
Me too.
Totally. Yeah.
Let's get Nick in here really quick. Hey, Nick, welcome to the Dusty Wheel tonight, man. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing pretty well. Sorry I haven't called in the last couple shows. I've been very busy preparing to move to Nashville.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries.
Ooh, fun. We missed you.
We figured you'd be back. So what was your comment?
Yeah. I had two comments. One on the whole Lanfear thing. I think it should be one actress. And they can do different things with lighting and makeup and camera angles and stuff to make her look slightly different, so that at first it's initially confusing to the audience when you see her as like Celine, and then you see her later as Lanfear, and you're like, wait a minute, is that the same person? Of course, we'll know it is, but the audience, I can't wait to see those debates on the internet, like people comparing camera angles. Like, I'm pretty sure this is the same person. They should just make Lanfear uncredited to even stir up further debate for the audience.
The only problem might be is she insists on wearing white and silver all the time, no matter which role she's in. So she might want to switch that up a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder how much they'll fall along.
Yeah,
but I hope they will. I don't think it's important that we all kind of wonder who she is necessarily.
No,
I think that's always meant to be a wink. I think it's always meant to be a wink from Jordan of like, yeah, I'm telling you who this is.
Yeah.
She has no interest in staying undercover. Let's be honest. Lanfear is all about being noticed.
Yes.
No, that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
What was your second comment?
I just think it'd be like a really funny story. I think they're coming up on like the mirror worlds and the dreams and Rand being tormented and all that stuff. And like, I don't want that spread out from the terms of the TV show. I know I said this in weeks ago or whenever, I don't know when we last talked about portal stones and the flicker stuff, but it should all be together. I realize that it's scattered throughout a couple books and through different scenes, but they need to condense it all into one big montage. Like, show us all the worlds at once, show us all the things. Other than the only time I want to see it again is during the spoiler time when spoily stuff happens between Rand and the Dark One, and they have that little scene.
spoily stuff. I like that. That was well done.
Yeah,
yeah. I know you made this point before, and I'm not sure. I don't know that with the Great Hunt that you can do that. Maybe like you're saying, maybe 2 episodes. I don't know that one is really effective here. Maybe it's a 2 episode kind of thing they do. I agree. We don't want to spend a lot of time in them. I agree, but
I mean, if you have to keep them, Matt, if you're insisting that they stay, I think
I'm insisting.
The whole sequence from start to finish could be the B plot. Perrin and Matt, and Perrin being the new sniffer with Verin, could be the A plot. And the girls in the tower, or the girls on the road towards the tower, is the C plot. Like, it's doable, but you're not going to get long moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. By the way, Nick, it's awesome to have you back, man. Sorry, did you want to make one last comment?
Yeah, I just think that you can. There's no reason you can't do the portal stones and the flicker. What the portal stones with the other flicker stuff where Rand is going, like you're seeing the different versions of Land, and he's being tormented, and it's like, oh, I win again, Lewis there, and you know that scene.
Yeah, I feel like that has so many plot implications that I still think. But yes, you could try to do something there. But there's so many different people that take part in that one. Verin, Matt, things that are formative to his character that we'll eventually get to through the Great Hunt. That I still don't know that you can kind of bridge those. But I hear you.
Look, it's a dream.
I'm with you.
You can do whatever you want. It's a dream.
That's true. Hey man, I appreciate it. It's good having you back. Hey, be safe with your move, and we'll see you next week, man. Appreciate it.
Yep. Talk to you next week.
Talk to you soon.
Bye, Nick.
Bye.
Hey, let's bring Joe into the show. If we can get him in here. There we go. Hey Joe, welcome to the Dusty Wheel, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How's everyone doing over there?
Awesome. This is Joe from Talk Around Riyadh podcast. For those of you that are watching and those on the panel, It's good having you here. Having you back, I should say.
Good to be here. So, I wanted to talk about some of the portal stones in the portal world.
Okay.
Seeing as we got those pictures of something that looks like a waygate, possibly, or a portal stone.
Yeah.
I was doing some thinking about it, and I think it might be possible that they're going to combine the ways and the portal stones, and maybe the ways will be just one of the portal worlds that they travel to. Just a thought.
This would kill me.
I do think they're going to need to have that, though. They can't cut the portal stones. They're going to need some way to fast track traveling. I think it's necessary.
Yeah, I mean that's a case to be made for portal stones for sure, which is a mechanism before gateways exist, just like the way gates or the ways, in order to get places faster, and the implications of that. I think that's true. I think that you're helping me make a good case for it, and I appreciate that because we have to keep the portal stones, man. But mixing them, that's a way stones, as people are saying in chat.
Waystones.
The way stones, they could. The metaphysical heart in me dies a little bit anytime someone suggests such a thing.
I know it does.
It just dies, and it slowly maybe it's going to die this whole the Great Hunt that we go through, because we're clearly having a hard time. Like, the Great Hunt is so dense, you can almost just tell, because we're like in chapter 14 after three of these.
Yeah.
It's just, there's so much material. So Joe, which would you pick if you had to pick one? Would you rather waygates or portal stones if they kept one?
I think it's a tough one, and I'm re-listening to the Great Hunt, and they spend so much time. And I'm getting ahead of where you guys are, but when they're in Cairhien and Thane escapes, and they can't go through the waygate, and then they wind up traveling to a steading, and then try to go through another waygate, and they can't go through that. They could cut all of that out if they just kind of combined and just went straight to the portal stone. So I think they're going to wind up cutting the way gates, I should say, but I think they'll keep the interior scenery of the ways as like a portal world. Like, they might travel to that portal world, and it looks like the ways, and that's just one of the different portal worlds.
That's interesting. Could they do that? Yeah. That is going to be, that's one piece that we don't know about this, which is there's a lot of the CGI, that kind of metaphysics side, that's not as easy to take pictures of and know about unless you're in the script, right? It's not like someone is taking a picture, even the staycation picture that we got we have no idea what that is, right? we're all guessing, but we don't know what they're intending in the script to do with that. So it is something we probably won't find out about until we're actually in the actual show, until the show premieres. And that's going to be the interesting thing, at least for me, seeing how the metaphysics turns out, because I don't think we're going to get a lot of clues for that until we actually just see the show. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and then I remember a while back they had shot. There were the pictures of the church that they shot in, and they were interviewing the mayor of the town, and he mentioned that they took the door with them and said that when they're done with it, they'll bring it back. Which I think everyone automatically thought was like the ways, and it was a way gate, and maybe they're just using the door for like all of the way gates. So it's like so confusing. All of this info, it's so much information, but then it makes things so much more confusing and complicated.
It's this whole thing, right? The Wheel of Time itself is it just depends on how much complication they want to add to it. Hey Joe, I appreciate you calling in, man. And like I said, like we've talked before, I can't wait to have you guys on the show. It's gonna be a lot of fun to do that interview with Talk Around Rand. So, by the way, those of you that are watching, definitely go check out Joe's podcast, and he and his friends. It's awesome. So, hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Hey, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yep. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay, our last caller for the night. Let's bring Lancer in. Lancer, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel, man. How you doing? Or should I say, Norm?
Sam! Yes!
He's so happy.
Hello, Tal, aka Carla. Hello, Rebecca. Actually, you're the only church character, Rebecca. You get to be Rebecca. So
Yay.
there you go.
Wait. I'm Carla?
What
Why not? You're sassy.
I'm sure.
Wow.
Carla's sassy. You're sassy.
All right.
So Lancer, what's your take for the night? I see your comment was Matt hate in chat. Is that what you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I got two things. One, I'm greedy. I want the way gates and I want my portal stones. How else you're gonna get the flame and the void if you don't have the portal stone. So that's the first time we finally get to see that whole look. I would love to see the CG of everything, smashed to black, and then all of a sudden you got this flame and all of the emotions going into it. So Rand can just tag a whole bunch of those Groms or whatever with his arrows. I mean, that's going to be badass. So I got to see that, and then we've got to have our way gates, because how else we're going to have the black wind of death of beyond slaughtering fools. So I mean, I'm greedy. Dang it! I'm flaming. I'm greedy. Mother's milk in a cup. So
I think you're right.
Pardon my
Get
French.
it all.
I think that's good greed. What was your second comment?
And there's a lot of Matt hate going on in the chat room, and I don't understand it because, I understand the whole journey that Matt goes through. Everyone either hated Matt in the beginning, and then eventually got to the love part of Matt, and I have some people calling him a Mary Sue, and I'm sorry. Matt in this entire story is the only human person in the entire thing. I mean, he's the only person who looks at the world and looks at his best friends rationally. I mean, let's think about it from his point of view, and I see you shaking your head. Let's look at this thing rationally. One, you have your best friend, as Tal says, in the whole world, your BFF, all of a sudden being a channeler, and everyone knows if a male person begins to channel, you're going to go cray-cray. So that's already nuts. Then you have your other best friend in the whole world start getting golden eyes out of nowhere. Where did that come from? He's the only sane person in the planet. So you see your two best friends getting crazy. All of a sudden, what? Hey, dude, what? And he was the last guy to get any kind of powers whatsoever. So, I mean, and his powers were subtle. Granted, the whole luck thing, but it's subtle. Unlike all these other... go ahead, Tal, please. Rebut me, please.
I'm not sure I would call it subtle. It's less accessible.
No, this is I think that's a good place to cover the Matt. I'm kind of curious what your feedback is, and we'll let you off the line, Lancer, and you can hear kind of how the three of us react to this. The Matt being the most rational. Is rational the right word? The most rational of them all, or is
relatable?
Most relatable, the most honest.
Sure.
What do you want us to take away? Is Matt's the most straightforward, or has the most clarity of what's happening?
Yeah, I think that works. That definitely works. Okay. And all of you have a great night.
We'll go with that.
Too.
Great answer, man. Awesome to see you, man. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
All right.
Yeah, so Matt, that's an interesting question. Do you think, Rebecca, that Matt is seeing things clearly as compared to everybody else here at this point? Does he have clarity where the rest, what I mean by that is, maybe for me, Perrin and Rand and, Egwene and Nynaeve, is Matt somehow able to see them?
I don't think he has clarity. I wouldn't go that far. And by the way, I'm sorry, because I think I started all of this. But anyway, so with my earlier Matt comments. But yeah, I don't think he has clarity. I wouldn't put it that way. I think maybe you could look at it as being, that's what I took out of it, is he's sort of relatable, right? The world is going crazy around him, and he's got the dagger, so that's kind of his own crazy. But aside from that, since he's more himself in the moment, he feels like he's stayed the same and other people around him are changing, and he's going to change too. So we'll get there, but I don't think he has clarity. I just think we could maybe relate to that, being the person who's watching the world go insane around him.
Yeah, I feel like he's the one that changed first, right? With the dagger, he was the one that went through it, and he feels like he's past it, and so it's almost like he's transcended the rest. Like, you guys are,
in
messed
the
up.
moment, he's not feeling that, so he feels like himself, even though he's already.
But
that going on.
Raider fan Keith, I would agree. Like, Matt does come across very genuine. Like, genuine in the relatable sense that, I would like to hang around with him. But it's not that I think Matt or Perrin and Egwene and Nynaeve are people that I wouldn't. But he does get that shtick, I think, a little bit because he doesn't have really special powers, right?
Yeah.
At this point, he's just like, he had the dagger, but the rest are kind of like.
Well, there's no benefit to his powers right now.
Right. He's kind of the oddball out, and you kind of feel for him, like, all this world, like Lancer said, it's kind of going crazy around him. He definitely that changes soon.
Yeah.
And he also speaks for and represents sort of the gen pop of Randland, right? So we have to remember that people think that men who can channel are the worst.
Horrible. Terrifying. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So his reaction is really what helps us understand, A, he still thinks Rand is one of his best friends, but B, he's grappling with the fact that he's essentially a child murderer and world ender to be. Right.
Yeah. And so, be honest, I didn't like Matt at this point, but I think in the show that won't necessarily happen because they can work around it, and the actor, is going to be able to.
He's delightful.
Yeah, he's going to be able to pull this off. So I don't think that's going to happen, but I didn't like Matt at all until The Dragon Reborn.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I was 15 years old when I started this, I think, or 14, something like that. And so Matt was like, I totally got Matt.
Yeah.
He had a good name. Too.
Are you the term that starts with F and ends with boy?
Yes.
I feel like Matt's the definition of that.
A little bit of that.
I love him. I don't want to love him as much as I love him. He's not good for me.
So, and Rebecca, remind me, I don't know if you had to step off. Remind me what your timing is before we kind of dig back in.
No, I'm
You're good?
okay.
Okay, cool. I didn't want to, whenever we're kind of reaching closer to the end of where the show's at, but I do want to make a little bit more progress into the chapters here. But it's been a lot of fun. There's been so much material. There's so many kind of key things that happen in these chapters that kind of form this moment out. Chapter good old 14, Wolf Brother moment with Perrin. Rebecca, what's this, when it comes down, distill chapter 14 for what we need to adapt into the TV? What does Rafe and his team need to get right about this moment?
Right. So, I mean, obviously this is just a huge Perrin chapter, and his decision to even bring anybody into his ability and to use them in the moment. So I think that's huge, and it's really the first time we see him is it the first time we see him deliberately using his ability? I believe it is. Like he's used it before, but it's been more like wolf directed up till now. So so I think that's the key thing. You know, that it's a decision that Perrin is making. It's not a hard one for him in the moment, but it's still a big deal. And then we have Verin, and that's a pretty big deal too. Verin showing up.
The Verin showing up. Sean Snee said, Perrin, ugh, I'm already nodding off. Yeah, like Perrin does get that rap, and understandably so. You know, there is a little bit of that to them. And you're almost happy when Verin shows up in this moment. You're like, Perrin doesn't really want to, you know, he's weird about his powers, his capabilities right now. And then Verin shows up and you're like, this is interesting, right? And I think that
always
this Verin moment happens. There is always the question, which I've always loved about Verin, and I have plenty of theories about this, and we can maybe talk about those in Discord afterwards. But how did Verin find them? Yep. And if you notice, Verin doesn't care about returning to where this person that she cares about a lot disappeared, which is really a weird. Like Ingtar's like, we can take you back there. She's like, no, I believe you. Okay, let's go.
Good.
You know, and this notion of like, I believe you. As though, like, as an Aes Sedai, she couldn't somehow maybe have some capability to detect what might have happened in that space if she went back there. You know what I mean? Like, but Jordan's like, no, I don't care. We're good. And then she's like, hey, Ingtar, let's go talk about this Rand character.
Everything.
Yeah, tell me everything, right? And like Joe pointed out, you know, Tomas is left, right?
And that was actually mentioned at the end of another chapter. Anaya, at the end of 12, Anaya mentions that Verin takes off without him.
Yep. Yeah, this is where I screamed all the time to everybody, like, this is suspicious, you know. But what Jordan did really well with Verin is that he just kind of gave her these, you know, this quirkiness, which I love, and I hope that the show carries this through. Like, you brought up Verin. I'm really hoping they get Verin right. Like adapting
the casting.
Adapting Verin is going to be so important to the success for a hardcore fan freak like myself. I don't know about everybody else, but for me really loving
100%.
this piece of the show. And I love Matt's ending here. He's like, it's Rand she's after, not the Horn, which is a really key statement for Verin and what, you know, and everything that happens after this point. So I love that. Tal, was there, other than Perrin and Verin, there you go. Is there anything else that stands out that has to be adapted here, or that you think is key that they get right?
Key that we get right, to Rebecca's point, this is Perrin's first independent contact. This is his first, without being prompted, reach out to the wolves. And our first real introduction to like smells. I don't know how they're gonna do this, but I feel like it needs to be conveyed. I don't know how, but we also get Perrin's wolf name for the first time.
Yeah,
right.
That's fun.
Yeah, we do.
Yep.
Excuse me. So I think it is really important. I also love that Ingtar's just like, sure, we'll just call you a sniffer. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. I get it. I mean, how Ingtar knows Elias, I feel like that was a bit of a stretch.
Apparently everybody knows Elias. I'm just saying.
Sure, he gets around. Also, is this the first incidence of a particular brown Aes Sedai fibbing?
Right.
It's definitely a moment.
This is the question that always stood out was, you know, what did Moraine actually send me? I think there were so many conversations online back in the day about how do you can always parse what that means. Did Moraine not tell her to come? And so she can say, well, she wanted me to be here. Of course she would want me to be here. Therefore, I believe she sent me because
what kind of
she's
mental
not here.
gymnastics could she have done to get there?
Yeah. We had so many theories about that. Like Joe said, she flat out lied.
Right.
But, which I think is a reasonable, I still think that's a theory at this point, only because I don't think that Jordan ever specified.
No, it was a real record scratch moment though in the reread, and I really feel like with a proper sound cue, it could just, like, in hindsight, maybe be something. I don't know.
I think it just depends on how much they play this whole Aes Sedai piece, and whether or not they're going to be really subtle in the text about having people question, like, wait, I thought you couldn't do this. So I'm kind of hopeful to see. It'll be interesting to see with Rafe and team if they pay attention and really focus on the Aes Sedai, and what they can't or can do, and how subtle the script turns in. I mean,
there's also the separation from, there's this moment, and when she says this, and we don't actually really know much at this point, but later on, Maureen says, "No, I didn't tell her that." So that's where it really gets interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Moraine refutes it, and to Dana's point, my point about Verin and this idea of lying with Aes Sedai, it's if they believe it, it's not a lie, you know. And so if whether or not someone remembers saying something or they didn't mean something, it depends on what you believed by what they meant, and you know, you can get away with it. And so it's that subtleness that I hope they do really well. That's my hope for this. Yeah.
Also, did our particularly crafty and observant brown Aes Sedai make note of any particular house symbols at any particular event that may or may not have occurred at the beginning of this book?
I love how your voice goes up when you're like, there's some secret here. It's like, and if there was, would you just tell us what you're asking, Tal?
Well, I really like, does she know? Do they know each other?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's unclear.
It's unclear. Yeah, exactly. But I would imagine, I always believed that she knew a lot and that she was kind of high up there,
I mean,
if you will.
If anybody would know some stuff, Verin would know.
The Bets in chat calls it your spoiler voice, Tal. It's a subtle difference from your questioning voice.
Not that subtle.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump into chapter 15. We'll probably end here right when we maybe we don't have to like sit on this piece too much because it's kind of this mirror world stuff and they're kind of going through it, and then we get to Lanfear here. Is there anything in chapters 15 or 16 that you both want to specifically call out as far as fundamental to the adaptation? We don't have to cover every single thing that happens. It's just, what's fundamental here if we're going to keep mirror worlds? What's happening here that really has to be adapted into TV? Like,
okay, the only thing in my view,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm jumping right all over this, is that Ishamael, Bael Doman, whoever you want to call him, is pushing him to channel.
Sure.
Forcing him to channel. Burning him alive in a dream.
Yeah. The Heron, right? The Heron mark.
We could have that anywhere. It does not need to be in a mirror world.
That's true. The Heron mark doesn't have to happen here. That's a good point. It could happen
I also
anywhere.
really like the scene with Loyal and the Sungwood. But again, I don't know that we need it here.
That's just cool. I just want to see that happen. That's all.
Me too.
Yeah. There's a line here, and then Rebecca, when Ishamael says, and whether or not it's the Dark One channeling, I don't mean channeling, but like the Ishamael channeling the Dark One, if you will. He says, "I know you, know your line back to the first spark of life that ever was, back to the first moment." I love that line because we know the Dark One is outside, right? In other words, we know that we think of the wheel as this self-contained, almost infinite system. There's always turns and turns, but the Dark One knows it as a finite creation, if that makes sense. This is how it's the first moment, right? Yeah, sure, you're part of this wheel and how you experience it one way, but I know how this all began. And I love that. Even though it's Ishamael kind of saying these things, I love that aspect of it. And it lends to kind of building this lack of, it's not that there's religion, but it builds this relationship between these two powers, the creator and the Dark One, and the people in the pattern.
It's also utter hyperbole, Matt.
It is. Yeah,
like he is making stuff up.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't know any of that.
Yeah.
They gotta, that's one thing I'll say is like playing Balsamon, whoever is going to be doing that. Like he's so over the top. Like I don't know. They have to figure out how to do that and not make him silly.
Yeah, but they can make him a little bit crazy, kind of silly in this. Yeah. As in before he becomes, Morden.
Right. Yeah. Morden's totally different. Yeah.
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 That whole, do you want me to take off my mask? No. Let me take it off. No. Like.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
There's this piece. I do want to call out this when they first meet Lanfear in this mirror world.
Of course you do.
I want to call this out because it's really important. The Gralm that I pronounce it Gralm. Everybody can tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
That she's fending off. If you remember, she's fending him off with a branch, supposedly. Like, here's this monster that charges Rand, about to take him down, and he has to kill him. And somehow it's not killing Lanfear. And I think this is a key piece to this whole setup nature of this portal stone, or sorry, this mirror world and the travel in here. This idea that the Grom, a little bit later on, right, somehow happened to show up because she wants to get out of here, and Rand is like, no, we got to go over here. And she's like, oh, look, more Grom are coming to attack us, you know, and you're going to have to defend us. And oh, look, more Grom are coming to attack us. This idea that she's orchestrating this entire event, and is what I hope they get right about this, which is just how manipulative
that seems very
is.
Clear. Yeah.
But she's real bad at being manipulative.
What's that?
That
really
Not
bad
trying very hard.
It's not really her nature to.
No.
It's not. Yeah, she's trying, but it's not happening.
Oh, save me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, save me, help me. And then, like, somehow the Grom's like standing there. She has a branch, and she's like, this thing's going to hurt me. I'm hoping they don't make it that, you know, I'm hoping we believe a little bit more than maybe when I read this, when I read it. You know, it's like a branch, and then it's this Grom that we're supposed to all believe will like, you know, destroy them, you know, and destroy Rand. So this moment of Lanfear coming in, is there anyone here on the panel that says this, that's making the case we don't need Lanfear?
No.
See, there you go.
I love Lanfear. I just don't love the mirror world.
You're a keep for Lanfear. Is there anyone in chat? I'm kind of curious. Would you drop Lanfear, not just to spite me, but would you drop Lanfear from the series? Do you have a good reason? I'm kind of curious. Thumbs up, keeper, thumbs down. You know, let's get rid of Lanfear. I mean, a case has been made, right? That maybe they won't have enough Forsaken. You don't have to. I mean, I can't believe I would even say these words, but you don't have to have Lanfear in the show. In the end,
Matt,
who are you?
I'm just saying you don't have to. I can make a case. I can speculate about anything. I'm saying
really, because I'm thinking about the last chapter or the penultimate chapter, and I'm questioning how you were making a case.
Yeah. Look, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not being serious.
Come on.
Okay, just kidding. We have to keep.
He needs one friend.
Of course, we have to keep Lanfear. If you've watched any of these live adaptations, you know that I would never drop Lanfear. But yeah, that's in the end, that's the question here. We have Lanfear, these mirror worlds. You know, the Great Hunt. How many episodes is this going to take us? Right? We get to this part, as you've noticed, if you've gone through the first 3 parts of this live adaptation with us, we are only in chapter 17. We are moving at a snail's pace, which is awesome. I'm totally fine with taking as many as we need to get through the Great Hunt, because I don't think these discussions have been unimportant. It's just there's so much dense material that it concerns me as compared to the Eye of the World, right?
I don't think that this whole mirror world sequence needs to take that long. Like, not actually that much happens in it, but there are some really interesting character developments. Like,
yes,
to me, like, I think Rand starting to realize that him taking leadership, projecting confidence, and like the way Huron responds to that, that's a key moment. And then the interactions between Rand and Selene are really interesting, because I mean, to me, it shows me exactly why like those two souls do not mix together. Like, she is trying to just subtly guide him, and
he's so
like,
dumb,
and like, you know, she's trying to flatter him, and she's playing this role that she thinks is going to work, but like you can tell that it goes against her nature, and that he, even when she pushes him, he just immediately is pushing back. You know, like they both want to lead and they can't do it.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree that she kind of plays him for a teenager in essence, right? Which is understandable how she's approaching this with him, because he is young and inexperienced, and you know, it seems stupid to us maybe, but I don't remember feeling that way when I was younger reading this, in the sense of like, but now, you look at it from an adult perspective and you're like, what the, what was she even trying to accomplish here? By the way, I love Roar's comment that we're moving at a Jordan-esque pace with our adaptation.
Fair.
That's a fair
Path of Daggers pace.
Path of Daggers pace. Yeah, no, this whole chase scene, portal stones, get them back out. I do agree with you, Tal, that we could. Mirror worlds don't have to be here, but I still think they add that complexity. Like I said, I'm not for that. If in the end, I think that it adds to the wheel and the depth of the wheel and what this thing is, and again, like the multiverse or string theory, whatever you want to call it, the worlds of if, I think, are really important. But in the end, she's trying to get in, right, to his, she's trying to become part of his little party, get him to channel, start to kind of insinuate herself in his life. And I think as long as they do that aspect, as long as they transfer that to the show, I think that's the most important piece to me. But and I agree with Shantane, the Mirror World, Teleron Riyadh, they all need to be distinct. But so any parting thoughts? We're going to have to leave it here. We're kind of running up at an hour and a half of time here. So any parting thoughts about what we've kind of adapted here, Rebecca? Is there something like an overarching theme that you want to see? Like, what is it for The Great Hunt for you? Like, why is it, maybe I'm assuming, a good book? One of your favorite? Is it one of your favorite books? Or do you think it's?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think then why I argue that we need to have Rand, break off by himself and have these interactions with Huron and Lanfear. I think this book it's starting to push him to where he has to be a leader. He's put in positions where he has to channel, and he's totally alone in a lot of senses without Matt and Perrin there. All those things are really crucial to his development. So that in this whole sequence is probably the most important thing to me.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, the change, Rand not being the same, them all not being the same, them all kind of going through the same challenges in different ways. I think, being requested to lead, and how they kind of handle that, right? I think and for Rand, this is definitely kind of more that for him. Somewhat Perrin,
a little bit,
somewhat naive. I think also goes through that. So, but yeah, I think that's a great kind of theme for this. Tal, last parting kind of thematic way of what you think is important from this kind of beginning of the Great Hunt. What do you want Rafe and his team to really get across to the viewers?
For me, it's the grappling with the internal change, both of themselves, but of their relationship to each other. That they're separated from the girls, that they eventually become separated from each other physically and emotionally. I think it's critical. This is the key of character development.
Yeah, I think both of those, right? The external challenges that they have and how it's changing them, but then their relationships. Yeah, hopefully we see that in the Eye of the World and season 1, and who knows what we're going to get from season 1 as far as the Great Hunt at this point. But yeah, I absolutely agree. Hopefully that continues from the Eye of the World's, episodes into the Great Hunt, which is this continued development of those relationships and how they're handling the new events and them changing, and how it changes them, which it does substantially. So anyway, thanks to both of you for being here. Thanks to everybody that's watched us and for who called in. Really appreciate it. It was awesome talking to you. It's awesome watching the chat. Like I said, I'm going to jump over in Discord here in like 5 minutes. If there's a question that you asked in chat, something I said that you disagreed with or agreed with or wanted to ask me a question, I'll be over in Discord and talking about that and talking about that fade, the dark prophecy. I'll quote that thing from Jordan if you were kind of curious of who wrote it. But I'll be over there. Rebecca, thanks for being with us tonight. Really appreciate that.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll do a fun little kind of interview, kind of one-on-one here in the coming months, and that'll be fun just to kind of talk about your channel and where you want to go with it and kind of how you got into it and everything. So it'll be fun to do that.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody, next week we're going to probably I might switch it up a little bit. We might do Nakomi next week. And then do JordanCon the following week. I'm kind of going back and forth between that. So just be looking out on social media. Follow us there. You'll find out. We might be doing a fun little another theory discussion and breaking down all of the Nakomi theories that are out there, letting you kind of pose your Nakomi theories to us and kind of talking about why they're either right, wrong, or why they're still, or somewhere in between. Make sure if you're new, hopefully you'll give us another subscribe. We do different shows every week. We'll be coming back on Sundays soon, doing 2 shows a week. We're going to have fun with that. Weekly is just not enough for the Dusty Wheel. I want to get back in front and chat with a lot of content creators. There's so many now out there, and kind of bring them in and discuss the Wheel of Time and what they're doing for the show that's coming out soon. So yeah, Nakomi's coming up next week probably, and then JordanCon after that. And I'll try to publish a formal schedule here later on in the next week or two as I get the next 2 months planned out. So make sure you subscribe, like this one, and come back next week and come theorize with us. It'll be a lot of fun. And I guess so I say good night from the Dusty Wheel. And as we say around here, smash to black.